Here we go, Anthony. Another live episode. I'm excited.
What's up, Bahama boy?
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you what. Sometimes I love hotels so much, I wish I could live in them. What do you think about that?
I think that's a really good segue into our show.
Yeah, it is.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the number one show in hospitality.
Hey, everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's Anthony Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman. So glad you could spend some time with us today. Anthony, how are you today?
Oh, I thought you were talking about me because we haven't seen each other. So let me ask
I
you a
know.
question. Do you miss me
Yeah.
when you're gone?
Yes, I miss you completely. As a matter of fact, I had a dream last night that we were podcasting, and it was very sad when I woke up and I realized we weren't currently on the air together.
Oh, okay, Glenn. So what brings you to the Bahamas, Glenn?
I was down here with my journalism hat on, covering the G6 Hospitalities Conference. You know them, Motel 6, Studio 6. So it was a lot of fun to learn what's going on in the economy segment. And while I'm here, I happen to grab a nice conversation with Graham Davis, who's the president here at Baha Mar Resort. So
Oh,
and
wow, that's
the chef
fantastic.
too. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But Anthony, one of the things that this resort has and a lot of other resorts have is like private residences, right? And sometimes they're completely untethered from a hotel or a hotel development at all. And it becomes more about the lifestyle of it. And that's why today I'm excited because we have on Paul White, who's the SVP, Residential Development, Marketing and Sales with Four Seasons Private Residences. Paul, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. This is fantastic.
Yeah, this is great. So we asked you one question before we went on the air. You're not a hotel guy. You're a residential guy, which makes a lot of sense because it's a different type of acumen, right? But you've got to have that hospitality part. What is that like trying to meld those two worlds together?
Well, it's taken me. I've been with the company now over 20 years, and it's been a bit of a swim upstream if I'm honest and candid.
Hmm.
What's happening in the world now with these hospitality brands is, when I look back on my career, residential used to be a vehicle to finance hotels and put hotel dots on the map. And a company like ours, when you look at hospitality at its core, it's most closely aligned with the living and lifestyle experience. So the natural evolution for companies like ours to just kind of grab, and we've been doing this since for almost 40 years, to gravitate and expand, not extend, but really expand into people that are staying with us to people who are living with us is really the most closely aligned natural extension for our brand. It's really the only thing that our brand has ever really out of its core hospitality has really ever
Hmm.
expanded into. So we've got, gosh, we've got close to over 5,000 homes under management around the world. We've sold probably, well over $10 billion worth of real estate. We've got a pipeline that's close to $10 billion moving forward in for sale real estate. So it's really given us an opportunity to really
Right.
expand into the space. And at the end of the day, which is, I think, my passion for this, is give our core customer who loves the brand and loves staying with us, give them a
Hmm.
true opportunity to quite frankly live the lifestyle, whether it's on a regional basis, a pied-à-terre basis, a primary home basis, a vacation home basis, but allows those
I'll take
people
all the
to
above, please.
yeah.
But you know what I like in a lot of these upscale brands, you can buy like a bed or you can buy a towel. Four Seasons, you can buy the Four Seasons. You can buy it for room.
Yeah, well, and again, if you look at other brands, and if you look at markets like Dubai and South Florida, you know,
Right.
every developer is looking at market demand characteristics plus product differentiation gives you pricing power. That's the typical real estate equation.
Right.
And when you go to places again like Dubai or South Florida, everybody's looking for differentiation, and so all the automotive brands, the fashion brands, everybody's getting into it as a way to just say, hey, we're different. But when you peel it back to its core, what are they really getting? Now, design aesthetic, fantastic brands, But what we think really separates us from the rest of the pack is it comes back to our core of who we are, our people, our culture. Yes, we're working with the world's finest architects and finest designers, market-driven amenities, but it really comes down to our secret sauce, which is our culture and our
Right.
people, and
So,
that
so
service
Paul,
delivery.
yeah, it sounds to me like any other hospitality endeavor. That's really what it comes down to. You have to have all of the aesthetics and that sort of thing. But without that hospitality culture, you're not going to really get people to buy in and spend that kind of money to be with you.
Yeah.
Well, hey, look, I mean, you nailed it. When you look at a management company's
Hmm.
business model, we don't own our hotels. We partner with different
Right.
developers, and what attracts
Hmm.
them, quite frankly, in today's world, given the cost of building luxury hotels, is the residential. That's why so many of our projects are not just hotel only.
Right.
They're mixed use, and
Yep.
and then to your point, we're also expanding into standalone residential. But what attracts them is people are willing to pay a premium to purchase the brand, and that premium not only goes to lifestyle, but these are also
Right.
very intelligent
Yep.
people. When you're marketing to the most sophisticated customer in the world who's paying a premium for something, it has to also have not only quality and service and being tailor made. It also has to be great residential. It cannot be and pardon my candor here, but it can't be a
Yep.
hotel room on a hotel suite on
Right.
steroids.
Well,
This
you
has
need
to
it's a
be.
different experience,
It's a
completely different.
different experience, and it has to have good financial undergirding. It has to be an investment for them. If there was I don't think I'm speaking out of school here, but there was an article about one of the former CEOs of one of the largest auto makers in the world.
Mhm.
He bought one in Surf Club, 3 years ago for 8 million, and in 3 years' time, he turned around and made a $10.5 million profit. So not
Wow.
the primary driver of what I see attracting our customer. We don't sell these for financial, but the dynamics are there. It's not just, oh gosh, we're this wonderful service company and we pamper
Right.
you with all this service, which we do, but it also has to be the right locations. It also has to be the right architectural design. It also has to have the right interior design. It has to be aligned with the right services and amenities. And then I call it kind of brand stacking. When you
Yeah.
when you layer the brand over it, gosh, it's the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's what creates special opportunities for our real estate
Wonderful.
investors and
You,
buyers. Yeah.
you know, companies can come into that market, but at the end of the day, you built a soul, right? The business there's a soul to the business. People live the Four Seasons lifestyle, even that don't go to the Four Seasons. So you branded that kind of soul and that ability. When you walk in a hotel, you know the difference between a Four Seasons and not a Four
Yeah.
Seasons.
Yeah.
What's the big, and you guys are like the pioneers, I would imagine, in this space. You're one of them anyway. So what is it like, 20 years ago when you started, or at the very beginning of the brand when you just said, I think 40 years ago? What's the difference between that day and today from not only your perspective of selling the Four Seasons residential, but also from a buyer?
Well, I think if we start, we've got different stakeholders, right? So I really look at the world. It's a three-pronged stool, right?
Hmm.
One of them is, well, which we'll always talk about, is through the lens of the buyer. Okay, and buyers in today's world have become so much more sophisticated that 10 or 20 years ago, you slap the logo on the front door, that was good enough. Today's world, it's not. They want to know who the architect is, who the
Right.
designer is.
Wow.
Floor plans have to be. I mean, the amount of time I, in particular, with our development partners, spend on floor plan design and layout. Finishes have to be of high quality. Otherwise, this is their
Right.
home. They'll just buy it and then spend all their time ripping it out and redesigning it. So all those things have to be in place, because these buyers are not just. They always say real estate is local, which it is, but our customer is a global citizen. So
Right.
they have multiple homes in multiple locations, and so they know value. So we have to serve that customer right. The second customer is our development partners, right? Our development partners, they're building to a higher standard because quality is important to our customer, right?
Mhm.
So we have to provide value to them, and then for us, we're the third stakeholder, right? This has to make economic sense to us, and I think for developers, they become, again, much more sophisticated in their markets. The customer has become more sophisticated. And I would say, without drinking my own Kool-Aid here, Four Seasons, and I give a lot of credit to our hotel teams because 20 years ago, they didn't get it. It was, you were the residential. There's a clear delineation, which they did not understand. Quite frankly, they ran high value hotel operations. Our general managers have become more business partners than just hoteliers,
Right.
because they're running mixed use developments that have restaurants, they have golf courses, they have wine club, they have all these kinds of things, and so I give our hotel teams a significant amount of credit for really adopting us. And it took some time, and our board has changed. And then when you really look at um, future growth is quite frankly kind of dependent upon residential as the engine or the tip of the spear to lead hotel growth.
Mhm.
So and when we did a project in downtown New York, and what put a hotel dot on that map was there was 1.3 billion worth of residential to sell.
Yep. Yeah,
So
we
that's
did.
what
We
that's
did a show from there once. So, Paul, I
yeah
just want to.
yeah
I want to get a little deeper into that to explain the philosophy behind that. $1.3 billion in value with the apartments and stuff. So, my understanding is, please correct me if I'm wrong. Back when this first started, the notion was to be able to leverage the apartment sales to finance the hotel
yeah
project as well, right?
yeah
So it became a smart economic model to get otherwise projects that wouldn't have penciled out to be successful. Plus, those residents will help supply, cash flow to the property as they utilize all the amenities and services.
Sure. And that's where the HOAs are formed. But again,
Right.
back in those days, it was a financing vehicle to put hotel dots on the map.
Yep.
And then it was like, oh well, okay, well, there's residents living above us. Gosh, they're asking for room service, and can they get this? And it's
Mhm.
start, okay, well, gee, there's an economic benefit to where now, fast forward to your point, Anthony, is we're one of the only companies that, and this is a brand differentiator for us because we will not do a branded residence unless we are the property manager. So when we first came into New York, for example, there was a lot of hotels, kind of like wedding cakes, right? The bottom
Right.
was a
Mhm.
hotel, the middle was
Yeah.
this, and then the top was residential. But the residential was managed by a property
Right.
management
A
company.
typical management company that you
And,
would have in
and
Manhattan for
yeah, and
for
so
apartments.
exactly. So and they manage 40 buildings in town.
Hmm.
And if you're a homeowner there, yeah, you lived above a hotel and you could call down and maybe get your dry cleaning done, or maybe get some room service, or some possibly use some shared facilities. But with us at this point now, this is our most prized customer. I mean, just on an annual basis on what they spend on their
Right.
HOA, that's more than most people spend on an annual basis staying in our hotels, even at the top level of the highest spenders. So this customer is really investing in this lifestyle, and for us to be able to manage that lifestyle, not only the service side, but we also run all the governance, we run
Right.
the HOA and
Hmm.
all the property management. So what that does for our customer is allow them to say, gosh, not only are we going to get that service delivery in an area that has hotel inspired amenities, but we don't have any headaches or hassles because, let's say I own something in the Caribbean, or I own something in Mexico, I own a vacation home, or I live in New York, but I own something in LA. All my headaches and hassles, everything's taken care of. So, because we do all the again, like I said, all the property management. So it's been a
Hmm.
key differentiator for us, and it's something that our boards of directors and our at each one of our properties and our homeowners themselves have come to really rely on, because they know at the end of the day, not only do we know the names and ages of their kids, and pretty much in a residential building, any service that you want, we'll provide it as long as it's legal. If you
Right.
want your jet catered, if you want a private chef if you want your dog walked, if you want your landscaping done, if you want your plants, whatever you want, we'll facilitate that. But at the end of the day, they also know that it's not a separate company behind the scenes. It's
Right.
fully integrated. And
And
from a
when they
brand
travel,
perspective, we care about them.
and when they
Yeah.
travel, if they don't have a, you're thinking the same thing. If they don't have a house in that city or that country, they're staying at the Four Seasons, so they're staying where they live basically. And I would imagine most of your customers that own the residence, basically are your probably best customers in the Four Seasons. Is that correct?
That is correct to a certain extent. I mean, look, real estate, and part of, when I look at real estate, it's location, location, location. Our goal is to not just say to trade solely on our brand, like we expect our customers to drink the Kool-Aid, right? So, if we build it, they will come. The classic field of dreams. Like, this customer is sophisticated. We have to choose the right locations. Now we've gone into places, and I mentioned Surf Club earlier. When we did Surf Club 10 plus years ago, everyone was
Right.
like, gosh, what are you doing going into Surfside? And the brand has the cachet and the credibility to also be a market maker and a
Mhm.
market mover. So, and that's worked well for us in destination real estate like Punta Mita or Costa Rica or certain places in the Caribbean and abroad. But my point is when you go in to look at business development, just because it's the Four Seasons, we can't take our customer for granted and say, hey, well, just wherever we build,
Right.
they're going to come. Now, maybe from a hotel perspective, because it's more transient and they will visit us, with the different dots that we have on the map. But people who are really buying something, why do they want to be there? What are the demand characteristics? We look at, what size units are these going to be, estate homes, or are these going to be multifamily? What sizes do
Right.
they need to be? What kind of amenities do they need to be? How do they need to be designed? And that all kind of influences how our customer interacts with the brand, not just as a user here, but also
Right.
as a making the largest commitment on one of the most personal things that you can do, which is buying real estate.
Where do you put the pickleball courts now?
Well,
There's one.
very
There's
good.
one right outside the window here at the hotel.
Yeah, no doubt. But we either pickleball courts are either being converted tennis courts,
Yep.
or like we've got a close to 100,000 square foot. We're developing. It's actually one of the night, probably one of the most interesting sites I've seen in many years in Austin, Texas. We're building a standalone residential only master plan development, and there'll be about 100,000 square feet of indoor tennis courts, basketball courts, and 4 pickleball courts. Just
Nice.
That's not enough. It's not enough.
I know. Yeah. Well, they'll have to convert the basketball court.
No,
To tennis court.
my question was going to be, what's the hottest amenity nowadays? What amenity weren't you building 20 years ago that you're building today? And I answered my own question. I said, it's got to be pickleball. But what other amenities are people looking for that they didn't look for 20 years ago?
Well, so I love the question because it's not just an easy question where I'm going to give you a check the box answer. It's one of the things that, again, when you're in the real estate business and you're
Right.
looking to drive, you're working with a development partner and you're looking to drive a price premium, right? Why would people pay a premium to live here? And unlike, I live in Southern California, so unlike, a massive apartment developers, when you're building all these amenities that a lot of people never use, or they're never going to be staffed, and you could shoot a cannon through them, and you'll never be able to get a towel or a drink. We really look at through the lens of developing amenities through market by market. So I'll give you an example. So when we were developing our standalone residences in Los Angeles, if you just did a typical check the box developer, well, this development had it, which, by the way, a lot of real estate development is done, right? You look at what the comps are in the market, what amenities they had, and then you kind of duplicate it because it's a way to be efficient and to ameliorate risk. We said, hey, look, what is it about Los Angeles that's important about that market?
Right.
But also, what it was, well, it's the entertainment capital of the world. Okay, if it's the entertainment capital of the world, what kind of market-driven amenity would you do? Now, every development has kind of a theater in it. or you know, how could we do that differently? So we reached out, we created a partnership with IMAX, and we built the in Los Angeles, it's the only private IMAX theater inside of a building.
What?
It's insane. And what's special about it is not only and we looked at it through the lens of the customer to say, okay, the people who are going to be living in this building, like they're going to be having Steven Spielberg over.
Right.
So why not for dinner? And the chef is going to make this is who our customer is. That sounds a little bit crazy, but
It's true.
who's living this lifestyle. So we said, why don't we make this the best, most exclusive private screening room in Los Angeles? Now, that screening room also, in terms of, to your question, it also is, pickleball courts, tennis courts. It's a you can watch the Super Bowl in it. You can, if you're watching the Lakers, you can take the lights and transition all the lights to be purple and gold if that's your team. You can do, we've done fashion brand releases. We've done all kinds of stuff with our homeowners, private parties, because it has a pre-function space off of it. It was all designed by Martin Lawrence Ballard. It's insane. But those are the kinds of things where we said, this is who our customer is. This is how they want to live. It's the entertainment capital of the world. It's not only accretive to our brand from a profile perspective, but it's also who this customer is and how they want to live.
You just said the word. You just said the word that's very important. Profile, right? If they're inviting Steven Spielberg over, or someone they're looking to invest $100 million in their projects, excuse me, they have a certain profile they have to live up to, and if you put them in a regular theater that they've seen 100 times, that their theater in the house is probably better. It doesn't raise your profile.
That's exactly right. And then mapping it back. Why would they pay a premium for something? And then mapping it back. Where is your point of differentiation? So again, there are amenities like when we did the gym there. For example, fitness and wellness, quite frankly, is the new luxury.
Absolutely.
It's really important. And now wellness, in my personal opinion, is one of the most overused, misunderstood words. It can mean a lot of things depending upon where the pendulum you want to land, right? Do you want holistic? Do you want, and some of that's also market driven. Are you in Sedona? So it just can play a lot of different ways. But when we were in that particular market, fitness and wellness is very, very important, and it connects to lifestyle. So not only did we build a private kitchen, so we can make our homeowners green juices, we can do all those kinds of things.
Right.
But the fitness area was curated by one of the best, if not the best, personal trainers in the world, who curates all the gyms for the rich and famous.
Right.
So what we did is we said, don't come in and build us a gym like any other hotel or hospitality brand. What we want you to do is think through the lens of the customer. What does the customer want? Well, the customer doesn't want necessarily a gym. What the customer wants is a trainer. So build and design a fitness center for trainers to use with their customer. Right. And then let's talk about regeneration and renewal. So, we put in these, we've got a water therapy chair that does, it's all, again, it's as opposed to just the typical plug and play. Let's call this fitness brand and have them just program it the way you would normally program it. We're trying to do and really challenge ourselves to say, how well do you know your customer, and how do they want to live? And again, this customer has personal trainers, and then we said, well, do we in this private residential building, do we want to have spa facilities? And to your point, I think you mentioned no, because they have the spa. When our private concierge brings somebody over from a spa for a massage or what have you, they're doing that in their private home. They're not coming down in a robe like they would at a typical hotel. That's all being done, and they've got their own steam showers and saunas and all those kinds of things. So looking at the balance again, this is where people are living with us, not just transient staying with us from a hotel experience. So it's pushed us to think a little bit different,
because people really want completely different things from the hotel experience versus the residential experience. It's a different level of care and attention to detail, right? So you're really getting into the nitty gritty, because if I'm in a hotel, I might rely on certain things a lot, but not necessarily in residential, right?
I'll give you one of those classic examples. I'm glad you picked up on it. And one of the things that I laugh about often is I say it's the same but different. It's the
Right.
same Four Seasons, but it's
Right.
different. So when we first started doing residential only, the biggest issue that everybody brought up, every broker, every buyer, even people in our company, is room service. What about room service? And it became almost the Achilles heel. And we said, no, 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 no,
Mhm.
no, no. So we did studies across the brand of everybody that lived in Four Seasons, and there's like, one homeowner in unit 9A that orders a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every day.
Mhm.
It's not utilized by homeowners in the way a transient 30-minute or
Right.
less white glove tray. What we discovered from just talking to our homeowners is room
Mhm.
service is important, but it's not that I would, it's that I could. But the kind of could that they want is, look, next Thursday, we're having friends over. We
Mhm.
either want our favorite restaurant catered to us, or we'd like the chef to come over and make dinner. We don't
Right.
want room service every day from a transient hotel menu. So again,
Mhm.
to your
Right.
point, Glenn, this is how people live versus when they stay with us for 3 or 4 nights, or on a vacation. It's the same Four Seasons service, but it's just tailor made very differently. And then when the world kind of shifted, and we were designing a lot of this stuff before things like, and I know it sounds pedestrian, but things like Uber Eats. Well, Uber
Mhm.
Eats kind of changed a lot of everything because it allowed us to bring the outside in. So even in markets like London, where we have one of our highest profile, in 20 Grosvenor Square in Mayfair is kind of the world's, most expensive. It's main for, great real estate. We have a concierge there that's bringing in all the best restaurants, because when people go and live in their house in London, whether they're there for 2 or 3 months or whether they're there, for longer periods of time, you don't go to live in a building to eat the building food every day,
Right.
right?
No.
It's there when you want it, and we curate those things like the green juices I mentioned. But they want either go to their restaurants or have those kinds of things brought in. So those are things that, as a brand, we've learned how to
Right.
do. So it's not Maslow's hammer where we look at everything like a nail and it just has to be delivered like a hotel. It
Right.
is
So
very different.
So,
It,
Paul, I mean, essentially, a brand is a promise on how it's going to make you feel. It's not necessarily specific interactions with it. So, for the guest, customer, owner, investor that you have, you're really looking to create that same sense of feeling that they get from the Four Seasons brand, but in a different kind of way, as per your example, right?
Oh, without question. And I think take even that a step further
Hmm.
in today's customer with where we're at in the world. One of the things that you probably don't see or feel as much on the hotel side that
Hmm.
is very, very important to homeowners. In fact, it's one of the things that we invest significant amount of time on is security.
Hmm.
Security and privacy, not only just exclusivity and quality, but security is very, very, very important. So we're leaning into those things as well. Of course, on the hotel side, that's all taken care of, but it feels and looks a little bit different when you're living in a building where you're parking your cars, you're
Right.
you know you're living. Again, our customers have a profile. They're titans of industry. They're celebrities. They're politicos. They have a profile with them, and so that's another area where it's the same, but it's a little different.
yeah,
Right.
this conversation, we've had 800 podcasts, right? This conversation is one of the most fascinating because the question and you're on fire today, going with your questions. Your questions were so spot on that I'm sitting here as a 35-year hotel guy who's never really had a hotel with a residence in it. But I've heard, I've had a lot of friends that run them, and I'm learning stuff that I've never even thought about before. Like security makes sense to me, and the food, and that makes sense to me. But all the other things you're talking about, and what their expectations are, is really, really, it's absolutely fascinating to me. After or during COVID or now, when you're building things, how important is office to the residents? Has it always been important, or is it now? I am building my office and I'm basically living and working in my house, or at least in this area.
It's a good question. There was a bit of an overreaction, and we were all like, "Oh, everybody's gonna have it's gonna instead of a 3 bedroom, it's gonna be a 3 plus because they've got to have the office space in it." This level of customer, as I mentioned to you, they're a global citizen. They're designing their homes, and they can work in multiple locations. I think the biggest trend from COVID were things like uh, which we've been really trying to do. And we're a Canadian company, so I
Right.
will always quote to give homage to Wayne Gretzky is, where the puck is going, not just where it's
Right.
at. So when we're designing residences, it's as much as looking at, office space or amenities, but also looking at where the customer is looking to go. So what happened in COVID, we had, it's been unfortunate for certain markets like San Francisco, but it's also been well placed for markets like Florida, like Tennessee, like Texas, and like Nevada. And so what we've done is we've really looked at not only, okay, how do we look at the micro aspect of programming, floor plans, and those kinds of spaces where people work, but these are people's homes. And we have, first of all, let me finish my thought. So we've developed in places like Austin. We're all over Florida. We're doing $1 billion project in just outside of Las Vegas. And again, not on the Strip. People don't want to live on. Our customers don't
No,
want to
it's
live on the
like
Strip.
it looks like it's a good number of miles away, but you've got it looks like from the artwork I saw, all the apartments are
it's where
facing
the
towards the
yeah
strip, so you have the
yeah
whole vista of the entire
yeah.
thing.
And again, I give our company credibility because, again, it's not where you would put a hotel. This is where
Right.
the most expensive real estate in all of Nevada is being sold. So we're really looking at those kinds of things. But again, we're also not necessarily designing this, Anthony, just for our customer. They can do whatever they want. I have 3 owners right now, 3 that I know of. One has claims to have the largest Hermes purse collection in the world. So she turned one of her spaces and then
Right.
brought the Hermes designer in to design this special closet for her. There's 3 buyers that I know of that before COVID, this is what's interesting. Before COVID, and this is how this customer lives. They live differently than we do. They built clean rooms before COVID. So kind of like Howie Mandel, like, hey, I got sick.
Right.
I moved to my guest house because I don't want to catch what the kids have. So there's all different ways. I have 5-bedroom, 5,000 square foot half floor junior penthouses that are 1 bedroom.
Wow.
Again, you could never underwrite something like that, but this customer says, hey, look, if my guest bedrooms, they can stay in the hotel.
Right.
This is my home. So this is
Right.
the way I want to live. So how they use and program those spaces. One of the areas where we've had to flex is how do we do a better job at tailor making to the lifestyle that because they're not just as programmable as a hotel module, where you have a certain amount of suite mix and a certain amount of standard guest rooms and certain common areas. Again, they live very differently. I have buyers that their primary home is in Malibu, but because they go shopping, they need a place in Beverly Hills.
Right.
And again,
What a life.
Bedrooms that would be a bedroom to you and I are a closet or makeup rooms or things like
Right.
that. So things iterate based upon priorities, and every buyer is specifically different. Now, I also have seen developments, to your point, to even take it a step further than just the design of a workspace, is master plan developments where,
Right.
look, if COVID happens or something happens again, we're gonna go to Costa Rica, we're gonna go to Mexico, we're gonna live there, and you know what, activities for kids, programming, being able to do schools remotely, those kinds of infrastructure. Even developers are thinking about that now. So I think there's it's hard to put it, state it specifically or generalize about it, because this customer is so different. They live so differently, and how they want their home to work for them. Again, just like an
Right.
example of a 5,000 square foot 1-bedroom home that's
Yeah.
completely
Right.
open concept.
Like normally at this point in the conversation, I'd like, how do you meet their expectations? But you've done a really great job of showing us how you're staying ahead of that and creating unique experiences specifically for those areas. And I think that's really what it all comes down to, right? Is giving them something they couldn't have elsewhere with that promise of the brand that you have. That, like you said, they're going to be able to and want to pay a premium for it.
Yep.
It's really fantastic.
Yep.
You know what I noticed?
Uh-huh.
Andrew wrote something. He said Paul White is the GOAT in branded real estate.
Yeah,
And if you want to throw that up there again,
yeah,
Glenn.
yeah. Give me one
And
second.
the reason I bring that up is because in watching you, you may have seen a smile on my face. Like your passion comes through, and you've seen so many things. I can see you in a meeting with all people with different kind of goals, and you can just sit there in this confidence and go, okay, I'm just going to let this all play out, and we're going to come back to it's what the customer wants, and this is, I've seen this playbook before, and this is where we're going to go with all that confidence. So I have two questions for you. Why do you still love it? And two, when you were in high school or college, did you think you'd be in this position?
Well, let me start with the high school and college. No,
I knew the answer to that question, by the way.
Yeah. So I wanted to be Jerry Maguire, or at least I thought I wanted to be Jerry Maguire, because all my friends, my friend group that I ran with, you can see my kind of football helmets in the back, and go USC. They were all getting drafted into the NFL. So I went to law school to become a sports agent. Back in the day, before there was really like IMG and sports agencies, where it was probably a little bit more corrupt. And I wasn't meant to be an attorney, and I got it. My grandfather, ironically, was a hotel developer, not in the luxury space. He was a hotel developer. He built everything at Lake Powell.
Hmm.
I grew up in Arizona, so I spent half my life in his hotels and development. But my dad ran worldwide semiconductors for Motorola. And I just kind of found my way into this space. Got my real estate licenses when I was 18,
Hmm.
and just have absolutely fallen in love with it. And the reason I've been here for so long is I probably could have gone and made scads more money other places, but being a part of something bigger than yourself is important to me. And I believe in this brand. And again, when I came here, there wasn't a whole lot. And to see where it is positioned now, and I truly believe, I might get my hand slapped for saying this, but I truly believe that this residential business, from a brand perspective, has the ability to be as big, if not bigger, than the hotels. Partly because, to your second question, if you always follow the customer, the main
Yeah.
point is the main point. It's always about the customer. The places where our customer wants to live, work, shop, play, there's more market. Our TAM is greater to go and take the brand into those markets, as opposed to just building hotels and locking on residential units next to them. I give an example often of a market like Vancouver. Vancouver, the best hotel market is not the best residential location. The best residential location is not the best hotel location. So how we start to divide and look at complementary markets where you can build and grow this business, it's a way to build and grow the brand. But also, again, this is what our customer wants. So we're looking at all kinds of different markets now. Like we went into Dubai on the water canal. In fact, we sold it out before it was even constructed.
Hmm.
So again,
Yes.
it's an opportunity for us. And again, my passion is because I believe it. And
Hmm. Yep.
and again, I see the growth. So we've been pushing this rock uphill for years, and now I think we've got it to a good place where, again, with market demand characteristics, who the customer is, how well they know the brand, what they're looking for in terms of real estate, the wealth profile that's out there, we're in a great position to enable this to really pull the company
Right.
forward. And I would also say that residential, in coming out of a hotel background, you guys will know that we started out as an innovation company, and I think now residential has the opportunity to be the incubator of innovation and almost a think tank
Yeah.
where you can go really get in touch with a customer,
Hmm.
and understand how they want to live the brand and pull some of that back into the
Right.
hotel side. Because even if you look at like I'm probably just known just enough about hotels to be to be corrupted. But if you look at even the big Grand Dame hotel lobbies with the big marble front desks, a lot of
Right.
those now are going away, and they're becoming much more residential experiences. So you can get
Hmm.
closer to the customer, make them feel more intimate. So again, residential has a lot more value than just fee streams and growth.
Right.
I think it tailor-made experiences that residences are looking for. How does that swim its way back up into the value chain relative to how you deliver that on a larger scale across
Yeah.
a hospitality brand? So.
Well, you're definitely right, Paul, because the trend in hospitality design over the last 15 years or so has been really to make it more residential in feeling. But you can't capture the same spirit of it unless you have those people that are actually living that life in order to pull those things out that you were saying. Last
Yep.
question I have for you. How many projects do you currently have in the works right now?
We've got, give or take, 40 plus.
Woo.
Yeah. By the way, that's just on the resi side, and that's globally in all the
Hmm.
different theaters. But yeah, we've got some fantastic, both mixed use hotel as well as what I think dare I say the term flagship, but really well positioned standalone residential projects in iconic urban cities. And then we're
Yeah.
also looking at how we expand even on the standalone into club locations and destination real estate.
Right.
Wow.
Anthony?
I learned a lot today. And to get back to the question about you were thinking about being an agent, you have the look of an agent, but you have the soul of a good guy.
I'll take it.
As a person that's changed agents 3 times, you don't have the same soul as they do. Actually, my new agent that I'm about to sign with, he's got a great soul. I really like him. I mean, hopefully he doesn't, hopefully the other side doesn't show up, but he really seems like a nice guy and genuine. But that's why you've been successful, like you said. And actually, it's interesting you said that because I'm sitting here going, he's working for Four Seasons. This guy can go and build his own portfolio, and he'd have one of the biggest real estate companies in the country in probably just with his first 2 pages of his Rolodex, right? Don't date me. And so
You did it yourself.
right. It's just fascinating. And again, I see that passion that we all talk about, right? Glenn and I talk about this constantly. You can't learn that. You can't teach that. It's like you were saying, like, well, it's going to be an hour. I'm a little afraid of an hour. We can keep you going for 4 hours. And because of your absolute, not only passion's overused word. It's your inability to do it wrong. Like you will not, like you may make a mistake because we all make mistakes, but like you're not going to do something wrong just for profit or just for the brand or just because you're not going to make that mistake. And I remember a person saying to me that offered me a pretty great opportunity. And I said, why would you offer me this opportunity? They said, because if you go to Asia and you spend $1 million of our money and you made a mistake, you'd come home and say, hey, I made a mistake. And if you want to fire me, but I didn't realize it. And that you have that soul. You have that soul of, hey, man, we're going to do it right. And if we make a mistake, we're going to own up to it. And that is so, when I recognize it, I don't recognize a lot of people, you got to talk about it because that is what young people need to understand.
Well, I'm a dad of daughters, and
Me
I
too.
grew up
I
in
have
it.
three of them. I have three of
I
them.
have two. I have two. I grew up in a time where it was about commitment to excellence. That was what it was. And the thing that I'm teaching my daughter now, in fact, I will put sticky notes all over the house, is how you do anything is
How
how
you
you
doing?
do everything. And it is the little things are the big things. And I know they sound like platitudes and this and that, but it really matters. If you take shortcuts in these areas, you'll take shortcuts in big areas, right? You want to be responsible with a lot, show me how you're responsible with a little. And
I love that.
that's
That's a really
just the
good.
way that I choose to live. And then I also I have the advantage of everybody in our culture. Like, it's kind of, again, I'm a USC guy, so we
Hmm.
talk about Jim Collins. Like, the right people will be on the bus, the wrong people will get off the bus, and then we see where the bus really goes. And then we have the benefit at Four Seasons because of our culture and our history that I get to work with a lot of special people. Might not all be aligned on you know competing interests because they're on the hotel side, or now we're adding jets and yachts and all kinds of awesome things because as a brand, by having hospitality at the core,
Hmm.
it's not drowning out everything like the Maslow's hammer example I gave you, because we always think everything has to be a hotel, but it's opening up all these other verticals like jets and yachts,
Yep.
and now residential is breathing on a whole different level because people are realizing that, what you said earlier, Glenn, it is different, but it's the same core, it's the same culture, it's the same service kind of infrastructure, if you will. And
Hmm.
so that again, that's part of the stickiness of the brand. That again, and I I said it, you know and
You
being
don't
a
like
dad
your
is,
brand that much, do you?
but I'll also, I do love the brand, but and when I joke about drinking the Kool-Aid, is I will also be honest that where we're not good, or where we can grow, or where we're difficult to work with. And I think that's part of why I've built good relationships with our partners, is because I put myself in the place of what our partners are experiencing. Like, hey, like,
Hmm.
look, you know, this is difficult when you're dealing with
Hmm.
us. We're going to push you harder because qualities, you're not dealing with a 3 or 4 star brand. It's going to be a pain in the butt, but if you deal with us, we'll get to the other side. And I don't just treat them as if you know we're perfect, because we're certainly not, and we're continuing to learn. And and I think that's helped give us a lot, me in particular on the residential side,
Yeah.
a lot of credibility, because we use words like authenticity. If you're not willing to be authentic, and you're not willing to show and expose your weaknesses, or where you're willing to grow, then you're also going to get development partners that are going to treat you differently, and just want to take your brand and use it for their own gain, as opposed to
Right.
really truly being aligned. And so it's just the way we and
You
me
use
in
so
particular have tried.
you use so many words that you can find in my book, and I'm sitting there going, oh, like even when you said about the small stuff, and on the back cover of my book it says, "Don't worry about the small stuff, obsess over the small stuff."
Yeah.
And one of the pillars of getting out of your own way, 5 steps getting out of your own way, is authenticity. Oh, thank you, Glenn. That was quick. We haven't talked about my book in a while, but like everything you're talking about, because you're not talking about linen, you're not talking about crystal, you're not talking about marble, you're talking about doing things right.
Yeah.
And sometimes sometimes you're building a room for your bags, but sometimes it's just saying good morning to that person, and with a smile and a familiar face, and knowing when not to say good morning and when not to show your familiar face, which is probably just as important. It's just
Yeah.
you either get it or you don't get it, and you guys get it, and that's why you guys are who you are. Everything else, you set the standard for hospitality worldwide.
Yeah. Well, again, I give our operations team, tons of credit, because when you live in my world, uh, you've got to have the confidence in those teams that after you sell the proverbial dream, that they're there to deliver on that dream. And that's where I think we're really, really lucky, because our ops team, our residential teams, that are the ones that are closest to your example. They say hi to the person. They know our homeowner, and we have an advantage, I think, in the real estate side, because these people are living with you. You know them. You don't have to, um, I can't imagine how difficult it is on the hotel side, but when you get to know the homeowners, like, how do they want to be communicated to? How do they want to be greeted in the morning? What do they want to eat? What are their patterns? And I think that the more you lean into that, the deeper relationships. And each one of our projects as well. And since hospitality background, I've worked enough in the around the hotel industry to know people get promoted, GMs move around. What we've tried to lean into in our residential buildings is to have our directors of residences be more permanent in those locations, because they're like club managers. If you're living in that home, you want to know there's stability, that
Right.
it's not just a residential building that's pumping out the next hotel manager or the next general manager. Like, you really want them to be your rock. And so even those kinds of cultural nuances on the operation side are things that we've really leaned into, that create stability. So if there's a resale trade, if there's a new owner coming on, people know the history of your building, because that's your asset that we're protecting.
Yeah.
Um,
Glenn, I know you got to fly. You got
I
to fly
do.
to another thing.
I
But let me
know.
tell you something, Paul. It was absolutely fascinating. I love learning. And like residents are like clubs in New York. I went to a club once and talked to the managing director of the club. I was like, oh, this is a whole different world. This is, club managers and general managers are different. But anyway, great lessons. And, thank you so much for coming on and really appreciate it. And hope to see you and love to stay in touch. So if you can
Let's
throw me
do
in.
Yeah. Well, hang out. Like we
it.
said, hang out for a second. Paul,
Yeah.
thank you. You
Thank
are
you.
awesome. We'll tell you about more how awesome you are in just a second. I want to thank everyone here for watching today. What a great show that was. And one of the highlights to me, Anthony, is when we learn new things. And being able to talk about residential was really great in that regard.
That IMAX theater is something that
Yeah.
will stand out in my brain.
Sure. And hey, something that stands out in my brain is hopefully your desire to want to download our show. Be able to do that wherever you get your podcast. If you want to watch us on video, find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are. We are there. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. Thanks so much for being here. Remember, everybody, you got one life, so blaze on. And
Be kind to yourself.
see y'all next week.
And one
For
day
real.
we'll get the sizing of that thing right.
I
The
know.
card.
One day. One
One day.
day. Not today, though. Not today,
today.
everybody.
Sure.
That stream is not ending.